Welcome to the 6-Minute Stretch Challenge number 8. We're going to start this one a little bit different, and I'm going to start with a series of questions for you. Would you choose to have a friend that talks to you in this manner? You're so stupid you can't do anything right. I can't believe you did that again. You're so dumb. What's wrong with you? You're not good enough. You don't deserve that. Someday people are going to figure out you really don't know what you're talking about. My guess is you would not choose to be around someone like that, nor would you talk to others in that manner. Yet so many of us hear similar words on a daily basis. Unfortunately, it's our inner voice. And in stressful times, for many of us, that voice gets louder, more draining, more unbearable, and it is typically inaccurate. Today, we will be focusing on self-regard and the role that it plays in our ability to bounce back. Before we discuss ways to improve self-regard, I'd like to share that definition with you, and we're going to use the definition from the EQI 2.0 model. And what it says about self-regard is it is our ability to accept and respect yourselves. It is to appreciate your perceived positive aspects as well as your negative aspects, and to really be okay with that and not worry about it. As a matter of fact, Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." And that's really what it's all about is, do you allow others to make you feel inferior? And probably even the better question is, do you allow yourself to make yourself feel inferior? So we need to recognize the role that self-regard plays. And my friend Sarah here is going to help you understand how to build that self-regard.
That's right, Denny. So now it's time for a little bit of muscle building. And as we think about the idea of building self-regard, the first two elements of our suggestions for strategic growth are leaning into the space of self-awareness. So the first idea is for us to ask you this question. Consider some of the times where your self-regard shows up in that low usage and really dissect why. So as an example, maybe it's when you are asked to talk about something that you don't know much about. And in those situations, you really feel like you're not comfortable with yourself and your abilities. And then you start to have a little bit more knowledge about those trending situations where your regard is low. Do the very same thing on the other side. What about situations where your self-regard is high? And why is it that you feel more comfortable? Maybe it's a situation where you think about a hobby that you just really enjoy or something you're super passionate about. Maybe your regard goes up and your usage becomes more frequent. Those two are so valuable because the more you create that radar system where you catch yourself in a low usage or high usage moment, you have a lot better opportunity to either raise it or reinforce it for a positive gain. In addition, another one of my favorite suggestions is to keep a strengths journal. Now, essentially what we tell our coaching clients is why not take an idea of pausing when you have a moment where you feel really accomplished, and then take a moment to journal it. What was going on? Why was it something that you felt was a really great accomplishment? And what was your contribution? When you can look back in a moment where you have low self-regard and remember that you've got great moments of accomplishment, it sometimes can mitigate some of that pull down and give you a chance to raise your confidence. Another one is to track your inner monologue. Denny teed this up really well. He essentially asks you to challenge that negative self-talk. Ask yourself what your tone is when you're in that inner monologue where your self-regard is trending low. What are some of your common phrases or some of the common things you say to yourself? And that lines up really nicely with one of the last exercises we're going to suggest you use for growth. We'd like to say, once you track your inner monologue, create an alternate statement that you would use, almost like a default statement that anytime you know you're in one of those low usage moments, instead you're going to have to say this. Well, essentially how that might look, and as I tee up this next concept, you want to really track what's going on inside that inner monologue. So let's give you a spur to how that looks. On this next slide, you can essentially see we are asking you to think about times where you might be in a low self-regard moment. You would ask yourself these questions. Hey, the last time I made a mistake, right? What was something that I said to myself, or what's normal? How about the last time you felt really anxious about something? Or maybe it's when you had a significant challenge in front of you, or even the last time you got critical feedback. When you put yourself in a challenging situation, what are your normal statements? That's you tracking your inner monologue. Then come up with an alternate statement. One of our favorite things to tell people, and Denny and I use this all the time, think about what you would say to your very best friend. If your best friend made a huge mistake, would you say, "You idiot, I can't believe you did that"? Or would you say, "Hey, what can I do to help you get something positive from this"? Because when you catch yourself in a negative self-talk moment and you talk to yourself in an alternate method like you would your very best friend, you will instantly raise your self-regard. So our goal is that one of these ideas spurs you to action this week. So Denny, lay the challenge on them.
Yeah, I will lay that challenge on you. And I also want everybody to think, just when you're sitting around, maybe you're feeling guilty or whatever it might be, what are you telling yourself? And it might not be a deadline related issue. It just might be something you're sitting around and you're having this inner monologue. So it happens throughout the day. It happens when we're in the middle of a major project, but think about what it is. And that challenge is, we're going to have growth as an individual. So what can you do to increase that self-regard? It's how often that we use it. And so really think about that negative inner monologue that takes place. Keep that strengths journal that Sarah talked about. Share this with team members, because what we want to make sure happens is that we share this with others and help everybody else grow. And you don't want your inner voice to look like this. When that happens, things don't go very well. So with challenge number 8, it's go time. So let's do this. Have a great week.